Well, good morning, and welcome to Unity of Charlotte, where our mission is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, to grow, and to serve. I'm Reverend Jim Fuller. I'm glad that you chose to join us this morning on YouTube or to tune in later for our YouTube rebroadcasts. I'm going to invite us in a Unity tradition to start by sharing together Unity's prayer of oneness. I'm going to read it through once, and then wherever you're sitting, I invite you to say it with me aloud the second time. There is one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God, the good, omnipotence. Together, there is one presence and one power in my life and universe, God, the good, omnipotence. So it is. We'll use that to take us into a little time of prayer. So wherever you are, I invite you to make yourself comfortable. Just relax. Right where you are is right where you need to be for this prayer right now. So softly let your eyes close. Feel your body just relax. Take a couple of breaths if you need. And set aside the thoughts and the cares of the morning or the day. And take the attention inward. Inward, where we can literally feel and connect with that presence and that power that dwells within each and every one of us. God presence, divine presence, powerful life. Breathe and feel that alive energy present in every part of your physical body. And know that that same presence is present throughout your mind, ready to guide you and lead you through your morning, through your day, through your week. In every moment, we are enfolded and surrounded by the love of God, by the wisdom of God, by the power of God. We are never alone. And so this morning, we simply give thanks for this opportunity to be together in this way, to be connected with one another and with each other, and to remember and experience that divine presence that is here with us and of which we are each living parts. And for this truth we say thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. Our church has had a prayer of healing that we've been using. And I'm going to read that with you. Actually, I'll read it and let you read it, echo it back to me, because I know some of you cannot see the words as clearly. We know that God is a love that has no end. We know that God is a love that has no end, and a power that knows no bounds, and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world in this very moment. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world at this very moment. We let go of fears and anxieties. We let go of fears and anxieties. And we affirm that all are safe, healthy, and protected. And we affirm all are safe, healthy, and protected. We bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant and radiant health. We bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant and radiant health. We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. We bless our global family with radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. We bless our global family with radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. Well, again, thank you if you're just clicking in. This is Reverend Jim Fuller here at Unity of Charlotte, welcoming you and thanking you for joining us on this YouTube channel. We'll invite you, if you will, to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll know when videos and things show up for you. There may be more showing up in the near future. And we'll also invite you to like our channel. That'll make it easier for you and others to find. And of course, we look forward to actually seeing you again live in person in the not too distant future. On normal Sundays, we have a youth education program that runs at the same time as this service does. So once that resumes, we invite you to bring your children, your grandchildren, your friends and their children, and join us here. And if you know of someone who's in need of prayer, or maybe if you're in need of prayer, we invite you to go to our Unity of Charlotte website, and you'll find a link to submit a prayer request. If you submit your prayer request, confidential prayer requests all, our Unity prayer team will pray with you for that request over the next weeks. You can also call on your telephone Silent Unity, National Unity's prayer ministry. The number is 800-NOW-PRAY, 800-NOW-PRAY. And a live person will speak with you 24 hours a day, any time of the day or night, and pray with you, and then continue to hold your prayer need in their prayer chapel. At this point, we usually have announcements. There's not much happening at the church right now, except right this week for our services. However, if you go to Unity's main website, unity.org, you can find a variety of online classes and programs that you can participate in from your own home. So please take advantage of that resource, unity.org, for interactive online classes and programs during this time of retreat that we are sort of all taking together. Retreat. At this point, I'm going to invite us to share together our March affirmation. Again, I'll read it out, and then you can read it back with me on the second time. It begins, "Today I surrender to my greater possibility. Today I surrender to my greater possibility. I gently release that which no longer serves my highest good. I gently release that which no longer serves my highest good. I bless my current circumstances. I bless my current circumstances. And I welcome and embrace the divine ideal seeking to express through me now. And I welcome and embrace the divine ideal seeking to express through me now. Today, I surrender to my greater possibility. Today, I surrender to my greater possibility." We're going to move into our time of meditation with a little music to take us there. So if you would just find a comfy position, relax, close your eyes, and let this music move through you. And from that, we'll move into our time of meditation.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. It's love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. It's the love that heals, the love that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love.
So breathe into that thought. Breathe into that thought. There is only love.
There is only
love. We're told over and over that God is love, and that you and I are creations of that love, made in the image and the likeness of love itself. And so if we breathe and move into the recognition of that love that is present right where we are, right here, right now, in this very moment. If we move into the presence of that feeling of love, we are moving into the presence of the divine, of God. No barrier, no boundary, no limit between our Creator and us. Nothing that can come in between. Nothing that can break the bounds, break through that connection of who and what we are. In this time of media frenzy, we seem to think of ourselves in many other ways. We're told to look out for many things other than love. While there may be some human wisdom in that, at the divine level, at the level of creation, at the level where things are healed and sustained and carried forward, there is only love. The great sages and the great seers have all realized this. And they invite us to do that same thing. To connect with the power of love, to let it move through our minds, through our bodies, through our lives, through our world. to invite that divine healing into every part of our lives. Let's just take a few moments and rest with that divine energy in the silence. A well-known metaphysical teacher of an earlier century once said, "Divine love heals all ills, heals all ills, frees us." Let us know that for ourselves. And let us know that for the people we love and the people all around us and the people we haven't yet met. Let us know that truth. That divine love heals us, restores us, renews us, brings us life. I invite you at home now, if you would, just to take a moment and see if maybe any people or names or prayers might be coming to mind for you, might be arising in you wanting to be prayed. And if so, just to pray those silently or softly right where you are in this moment. And as we allow those names and prayers to continue, we give thanks for the activity of God, for the activity of that divine love that moves through, blesses, and heals us all. And together we simply say, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God." And so it is. So welcome back. Well, this week we begin a 3-part Easter series. I'll offer the first part, Next week, Reverend Sally will return to walk us through Palm Sunday. And I'll follow up on April 12th with an Easter message. As we prepare to explore our Easter stories, I want to start by reminding us that the stories in our Bible are primarily teaching stories. They are parables. They are not histories. While many of the characters in the Bible may be historical, many of the stories probably are not. Contemporary Bible scholars point to the many places where the stories directly conflict with each other, or where parts of old stories from the Old Testament have been lifted and placed into the Gospels to express teaching ideas. Does that diminish the Bible's account of Easter and its message? Absolutely not. It simply reminds us to look at the message behind the story and not get all caught up in the various details of the story. In the light of the present health crisis that keeps us trapped in our homes, the message for today, I think, is going to be very relevant. So on to Easter, on to our first of our Easter talks. Question for those of you that are watching. How many resurrections are there at Easter? Well, there's a lot. I'm going to tell you more about that on Easter Sunday, but today I'm going to talk about one of the two main resurrection stories that we think about at Easter, the resurrection of Lazarus. It's found in the Gospel of John. Now, we know that the Gospel of John is not a historically oriented gospel, and since it's the only gospel that mentions the man Lazarus or his resurrection, again, this is most likely a teaching parable, not a history. But looked at metaphorically or symbolically, the resurrection of Lazarus serves as an introduction to help us understand this concept of resurrection, coming out of the tomb. I'm going to share a condensed reading of the story, because the story itself is a little long, and then talk about the various elements of the story, the underlying messages. A certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. The sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he who you love is ill." Although Jesus loved Mary and her sister and their brother Lazarus, after having heard Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. After this, he said to the disciples, "Let's go to Judea again." That led to some dissension among the disciples, who didn't want to go back. He told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to awaken him." That's a key part. And again, the disciples don't seem to really understand what he's saying to them. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. And Martha says to Jesus, "Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died." Mary says the same thing and then starts weeping. And that's where we get our famous line, "Jesus weeps." I'll talk about that in a minute. It goes on to say, Jesus was again greatly moved when they came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." And Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there's a stench. He's been dead for 4 days." They took away the stone anyway. And Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me. But I've said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they might believe that you sent me." When he said this, he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And the dead man came out, his hands and feet still bound with burial cloth, and his face still wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Quite a powerful story. Well, when we look at Bible stories metaphysically, we're reminded that the stories are all about us and our experience. This one particularly about our thoughts and mental habits and how they bind and entomb us. There are 4 major characters in the story. First, we have Jesus, who represents not only the historical figure of Jesus, but also metaphysically the timeless God-connected selves that we all are, the Christ nature that lives within each one of us. We also have Mary and Martha, the two sisters, and their brother Lazarus. Women in the Bible stories often represent the emotions. We can think of them as the emotional reactions to the appearances of the outside world, what seems to be happening around us. And the results of those reactions are represented in Lazarus. Now, the name Lazarus literally means whom God helps, or whom God is helping. His town where he lives is called Bethany. It literally means house of figs. Fig trees are noted for dripping sap or weeping. So there's a metaphoric reference there to weeping or inner sadness. So we might imagine that the Lazarus of this parable is sick and sad and dying and eventually dead. But, since his name means whom God helps, if you were living in Jesus' time, or if you now know that what the name means, you know that he's going to be okay. The name Jesus literally means God is salvation. And he tells his disciples, his followers, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep. He's fallen asleep to who he is. He's fallen asleep to his God connection. We fall asleep when we forget our God connection. And we sometimes feel inwardly dead, don't we? The disciples in the story are sort of a side note. For me, they represent the parts that are still learning, still arguing and misunderstanding, trying to understand the teachings. Like Lazarus, those parts are still too asleep to get the whole meaning of what's being said to them. Now, the name Mary comes from the same root as the Hebrew word for bitterness. If any of you have been to a Passover meal, you've eaten maror, bitter herbs, same root as Mary. So for people of Jesus' time, the word Mary would represent emotional reactions. It would represent the bitterness or the sadness that we experience in relationship to our world. And so Mary weeps. And the story says Jesus weeps also, but I've always assumed that Jesus didn't weep at Lazarus' death. Remember, he said Lazarus is asleep. We're just going to go wake him up. I assume he weeps at Mary's unawareness. I'm told by Bible scholars that the name Martha is more of a title than a name. I kind of call her Miss Practicality. Miss Practicality. She represents our logical, practical thinking, our very human reactions to what we see and hear in the world around us. When Jesus, God-connected mind, says, take away the stone, it's Martha, the practical mind, that says, wait a minute, there's a smell. He's already been there for 4 days. This is a parable that uses Martha to set the stage for Jesus to remind us that we're not limited by laws or appearances of this world. We are not limited by that. We might recall the other parable of Mary and Martha found elsewhere in the Gospels, where Martha runs around attending to the guests at the house and the food and complaining all the while Mary sits at the feet of Jesus listening to the God teachings. Are we going to get caught up in the details and the appearances and forget to attend to that voice of spirit? Or are we going to find ways to stay focused on God? Are you aware of the fact that many people have been prayerfully called back from physical death? Not just Lazarus and Jesus, and not just in biblical times. Every time I read about or hear about one of these events, it's a reminder of the truth that there is no such thing as death. Not for Lazarus or Jesus or any of us. We are timeless, interconnected parts of God. There is a greater presence happening here in this life and in this world. One that allows us to overcome whatever may be troubling us in the moment, including death. So how do we do that? Well, the story gives us hints. The parable of Lazarus gives us hints. The first thing Jesus does is he looks upward and he prays. He raises his focus. He connects his attention with God mind. This is done, it's said, for the sake of the crowd. I think of that as to quiet the crowd of upset and anxious and unsettled thoughts and feelings that are present in everyone there. or present in us. If we want to get past the crowd of upset and fearful thoughts in us, we're going to have to raise our attention. We're going to have to center on God. Remember, when we do this, we find ourselves connected, empowered, and guided. After praying, Jesus speaks to the undying nature of Lazarus, the true person within the body. And he calls out, "Come out, Lazarus." And Lazarus does. And Jesus then directs Mary and Martha, the emotional reactions, the practicality, to unbind him, let him go. Release those thoughts and stories. Release all that which you've bound Lazarus and yourselves. That's what the story's about. Maintaining our divine connection in order to keep our true self, our undying self, free, unbound. So the message of the parable seems extremely relevant for our current time and current situation. How many of you watching today are sad or upset, like Mary, about all that seems to be happening in the world around us? Disease, unemployment, restrictions, unclear leadership. How many of you, like Martha, are becoming obsessed with trying to figure out all the ways to practically handle it? An easy trap to fall into. Last week, one of my Course in Miracles daily lessons had the affirmation, "I am not a body. I am free, for I am still as God created me." That's an idea that's repeated a number of times throughout the Course, throughout most of New Thought teachings. Paraphrasing some of the reading from that day, it goes on to say, "I am God's child. Let my mind be still and think about this for a moment. And then I can return to the earth without confusion as to what my Creator loves and created as his holy child." Lazarus was God's divine creation. He always was whole and perfect, but he'd fallen asleep to that fact. Reactive emotions, practical thinkings had made him sad and sick and eventually entombed him and pronounced him dead. But God mind, Christ mind, Jesus mind was always there to wake him up. Easter is all about overcoming our misplaced beliefs in appearances, in limitations, and particularly in death. I sometimes call Easter We Don't Die Day. We don't die. Easter's about waking up to the timeless truth of who and what we are. How much freer, how much more alive might you feel if you let go of some of your old sad thoughts, some of your old practical thinking, some of that Mary and Martha living in you? You know, Lazarus' resurrection actually begins early on when Mary and Martha decide to ask for help. Ask for some support outside their own limited thinking, to turn their attention higher, which for them was to call for Jesus. We begin our resurrection by turning our attention higher. You know, Christ mind lives in us. It's there. Maybe we invite others to help support us in our prayer and turning our attention higher. Maybe we use some of the resources that we have available. But please notice in this story, just like in our lives, Jesus doesn't just show up automatically. Mary and Martha didn't like that. They complained about it when he did show up. But they did keep watching until he arrived. If we simplistically think we can say some affirmations or do a prayer or two and then just go back to our old lives, we too will stay asleep and entombed. I want to talk for just a moment about your feelings and your emotions. They're probably pretty active right now in this time. In our daily life, it is extremely helpful to be aware of our feelings and emotions. I often tell people, your feelings are your friends. Your feelings are your friends. Because they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you when you are centered in God, when you are in that place, and they're going to tell you when you are not. They're going to warn you when it's time to get recentered. Again, I remind you, one of the first things Jesus does when he shows up on the scene is to lift up his consciousness in prayer. Make that divine connection for the benefit of the crowd, to quiet down all that's going on. It's important to notice if your mind has a tendency to shift over to or replay sad stories or emotional stories over and over. Also important to notice if you have a tendency to share those old sad stories. You might want to redirect your words and your thoughts. Some people like to spend time reading or watching sad movies or reading sad books. Think about what that's doing inside you. Is that the direction you want to move your mind to? Whatever we think about, this is a basic core teaching found in the Bible and in all spiritual teachings. Whatever we repeatedly think about, what we replay and dramatize in our minds, we give power to. And that influences the whole direction of our life. If we can learn to prayerfully work to see people and situations from a higher or spiritual perspective, we can over time help release much of the negative energy that we have attached to the people and situations. It can help us break free. It can help others. Using gentler words to express the stories and things that we must share, words that are not emotionally charged, can also help us release old hurts and wounds. If we continue using words like abused and traumatized and horrific and devastating, that just keeps Mary upset and Lazarus in his tomb. And again, particularly nowadays, watch out for Martha, the part that gets all caught up in what's going on in the world around you. She's the one that's going to be keeping a close eye on Lazarus to see, how does he look today? Is he eating well? Do we think he's getting sick? Does he maybe need to go see the doctor? Oh my gosh, what if he dies? She's the one that follows the news and notices, the barley harvest is off in Egypt. Could mean famine in Israel. We better prepare for the worst today. Can you see where that kind of thought energy is going to lead you? Again, my point is that neither Mary nor Martha nor Lazarus saw themselves correctly. None saw themselves as God's children, God's perfect creations, as divine beings. And neither Mary's weeping nor Martha's observation that he's already getting smelly did anything toward helping with the resurrection of Lazarus, restoring him or his family to wholeness. What was needed was a shift to a higher perspective, inviting Jesus, inviting Christ mind into any situation brings healing and life to places where we and others have fallen asleep, died to who we are. That's why I like Jesus' diagnosis of the situation. When he heard what was happening, he told his friends. He made a diagnosis. He says, Lazarus has fallen asleep. I'm going there to wake him up. So, as we move through our pandemic of fear and concern, which is the underlying problem, let's see how much we can keep our minds elevated toward God or Christ's thinking. Our basic work is threefold. First, we notice the apparent situations around us. We don't bury our head in the sand. We notice what's happening, and we notice our reactions to them. We notice the emotions and the feelings. That's going to tell us if we're centered or if we need to get centered. Then we're going to work on some releasing and letting go. Releasing of our misplaced faith in the power and appearances of the world. Releasing and letting go of that. There is a higher power at work, and we're part of it. And then we begin to redirect our attention Godward. Send for Jesus for help. Pray for others. Pray with others. Maybe call Silent Unity or use the church's prayer request for prayer support. Notice, release, and redirect the mind. That's how we resurrect Lazarus. That's how we resurrect ourselves and one another. So I made a little affirmation for this week, as I always do. It goes like this: as I release and let go, I am released and set free. As I release and let go, I am released and set free. Please say that with me wherever you are now. As I release and let go, I am released and set free. Say that one more time. As I release and let go, I am released and set free. Now close your eyes and let that thought just settle into every bit of your body and mind and spirit. As you release and let go, as you choose to consciously release and let go of all the lower order thoughts, you, in this very moment, powerful spirit, powerful divine being that you are freed from the tomb. You are released. You are set free by your releasing and letting go. There has never been a time when any one of us was anything less than the perfect spiritual being that our Creator created. We are that right now. We always will be. It is only wrapping ourselves in other thoughts that seems to have kept us bound and entombed. But by remembering the truth, by letting go of those wrappings that we've put around ourselves, we become free and able to help free and release others. So I'll invite you to open your eyes and share the affirmation with me together at least a couple more times. Together we say, as I release and let go, I am released and set free. Again, as I release and let go, I am released and set free. And so it is. Well, I hope you can feel that, because prayer and affirmations work when we can get them to the level of feeling, where we can actually feel that presence in us, feel that and know the truth. That's what I wanted to share with you today. I'll be back at Easter time to share several more resurrections. That should surprise you a little bit. Next week, our friend Sally will be here, Reverend Sally will be here to share her Palm Sunday service. In the meantime, we have an opportunity to help support this Unity ministry. And this is an unusual time for us here at Unity of Charlotte because, of course, you are there watching us on your TV or your laptop or your phone. And we're here in the chapel sending this service out to you. I would pass you an offering plate, but it's a little difficult to do that in this situation. So we have two ways that you can help keep this ministry going. And remember, it costs the same amount whether you're sitting in the pew or whether you're sitting at home. Two ways. One, you can mail a check to us at our address. It'll be on your screen there. 401 East Arrowwood Road, Charlotte 28217. 401 East Arrowwood Road, Charlotte 28217. If you're one of the old-timers like me, and you still use checks, remember these things, young people? Just put it in an envelope, address it to the church, and we will really appreciate it. Whatever you can send, your regular offering or even a little more would be extremely helpful right now. Very important to do. The other thing you can do is simply take your electronic device, your phone, or if you're on your laptop watching, just go to unityofcharlotte.org. Unityofcharlotte.org. Look for the donate link. Simple, safe, convenient. You can do it right after you finish watching this video. Please do. Because again, this church operates because of you. It's your church. It supports you as you support it. So please, make that donation today. So I'll invite you to take whatever you're going to share. I'm taking both my phone and my check in hand. And, well, it's going to be a little interesting today because I've got to hit a clicker here. And we're going to share a prosperity blessing together. I'll say it through once, and then you can say it through with me. Or actually, I'll just line it out in parts. Joyously, I give this gift. Together, joyously, I give this gift. Knowing that the divine presence blesses and multiplies, knowing that the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. All that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Well, we're going to close down this live broadcast by sharing together our prayer of protection, a prayer we share every week here. Again, I will go ahead and line it out for those of you that are watching on a small screen and can't read what's beside me. And then we'll close with the peace song, a more traditional version playing. So for our prayer of protection, the light of God surrounds us. Together, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. Together, the love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. Together, the power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Wherever we are, God is. And all is well. And all is well. God bless. Have a wonderful week. We'll look forward to seeing you here with Reverend Sally next week, with myself the following week. Remember to go to your computer or your phone and make that donation now. Thank you.
Begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song.